United States and Europe have been at loggerheads. Greenland is a sticking point. While the World Economic Forum's annual meeting was seen as a tipping point, American President Donald Trump has walked away with the framework for a future deal. Ceasefire with Europe has set in for the time being, but reports say that the 1951 US-Denmark agreement will be updated, allowing America to exercise sovereign control over selected military zones in Greenland. On the way back to US from Switzerland, Trump hinted at further concessions for his country's military. He also claimed that other countries might contribute to what he calls his Golden Dome project.
We're all going to work together, and actually NATO is going to be involved with us. We're going to be doing it in conjunction, parts of it in conjunction with NATO, which is really the way it should be. And we won't have any expense because we're not going to have expense. Other than building the Golden Dome, we're going to build the Golden Dome. And we'll have participation in that also. The cost of the Golden Dome, we'll have participation in that also, meaning with the expense of it.
Europe has heaved a sigh of relief at Trump's climb down from his threat of acquiring Greenland by force and imposing additional tariff on NATO allies. Holding an emergency summit, the EU conceded the need to implement the trade deal with America and strengthen transatlantic cooperation. While Greenland's Prime Minister, Frederik Nielsen, has described his country's sovereignty as a red line, Denmark has agreed to hold meetings with the US to fine-tune this deal over Greenland.
First, there was the president's speech at Davos, where he took the somewhat extreme idea of annexing Greenland off the table. That was good. And then there was the subsequent meeting with NATO's Secretary-General, after which the trade war with Europe was called off, and he said, "Now I will ask the foreign minister and the vice president to negotiate a solution."
But the question remains, has Europe conceded too much? With reports suggesting that Washington will be able to independently control certain areas in Greenland, United States might be in a position to leverage this island's rich resources. Remember, 25 out of 34 critical minerals are found in Greenland. With many European nations refraining from joining his board of peace, Donald Trump has again isolated his NATO allies and sought to stamp his dominance on a body which is perceived to be a rival to the United Nations. Even as this game of one-upmanship continues, China, remember, has been trying to entice American allies with trade. A week ago, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney held talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing. They forged, a new strategic partnership along with a landmark trade deal to remove trade barriers. China, remember, also hosted South Korean President Lee Jae-myung earlier this year. Meanwhile, UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who has been at loggerheads with the US, is all set to visit Beijing next week to strengthen their business ties. Amid all of this geopolitical uncertainty, the Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, left a food for thought. After meeting Keir Starmer a day earlier, she wrote a note in the visitor's book, and I quote what she's written, "With a little help from my friends." Drawing inspiration from the iconic Beatles song, she gave a clarion call. Europe needs to showcase unity more than ever before. And let's also get you this report by WION's Assistant Editor for Foreign Affairs on what exactly happened over Greenland at the World Economic Forum.
Here at Davos, the big story was the Greenland deal. It was a breather for European leaders who were anxious after Donald Trump's speech at the World Economic Forum. During his speech, he reiterated his stance that Greenland is required for the security of the United States. But hours later, he announced a deal. The details, the official details, are awaited as to what is the content of the deal. But it is clear the European leaders have got a message that it's time to have much more independent policy at a time when Donald Trump's tariffs are changing the world order and the transatlantic relationship remains at their lowest level. And they're looking for new partners like India. In fact, during the Economic Forum, we saw several references to India, including by Ursula von der Leyen. who will be in Delhi over the weekend and will be taking part in the India-EU summit on Tuesday. That will see two key announcements: the FTA and the defense and security arrangement between the two sides. Clearly, Europe, after getting bruised by Donald Trump, is looking towards the larger world for stability. With video journalist Neeraj Patel, Sudhan Sibal for WION in Davos, Switzerland.